Exclamation everybody, and welcome to Slipstream. It's by Ansdor and is fully released out on Steam, currently 10% off at $8.99, normally $9.99 US. It is a old school racing game, very much in the style of Outrun, and I'm going to talk about that a bit as we go in here. This is actually my second time recording this because I was confusing it with another game, and I'll talk about that a little bit more as we go. But right now, there are a couple different modes. There's arcade mode, quick race, and a Grand Prix. We're going to do arcade mode real fast, see how far I can get into it, and then we'll do the Grand Prix, which is sort of the single player progression. As it were, it's all single player, but you know what I mean. It's the progression thing. Arcade mode is literally like Outrun arcade, as you'll see. And then we'll do regular, and we'll pick maybe, let's see, I guess we'll pick the yellow, the Type 23, since it's all overall good. And we'll do medium because if you do easy, you don't get any achievements. They turn them off. So now I am using the keyboard for this. You might be wondering, why are you using the keyboard for this? Well, the main mechanic of the game is drifting, and in order to drift in this game, much like you had to do in Outrun, or well, I'll talk about that, the Outrun arcade game on the 360, you have to take your finger off the accelerator and put it on the brake. I am actually got it on the wrong thing here. I was like, why am I not? There it is. So now I'm doing a drift here. Sorry, I had my fingers on the wrong keys. It's X and C, and I was doing the wrong one. So the brake is C. In order to do a drift like that, you have to take your finger off the accelerator, put it on the brake, and also be, put it on the brake, tap the brake, and then put it back onto the accelerator while holding down one of the arrow keys. So it's kind of complicated. It sounds complicated to speak about. It's not that difficult a maneuver. It's just that the game is very unforgiving about how much time it gives you to do said maneuver. So, for instance, really you have to be. If I speak about Outrun, the Outrun arcade game on the 360 for a moment, that worked really well on a controller because it gave you enough time to take your finger off the accelerator trigger, put it on the brake real fast, and then switch back to the accelerator. This game with a controller, I was finding it just too difficult to, like, you gotta be super fast with the transition between accelerator and brake in order to do it successfully. And since those are mapped to triggers, I was not having a very good time of it. Now that I'm doing it with the keyboard, I'm having a better, easier time of doing it consistently, because you don't have that analog input. You have a very, very digital, very digital input to handle it. Whereas with the triggers, I just couldn't do it. Just wasn't working out. So that's why I'm using the keyboard. I know that was a very long, drawn-out explanation because I'm trying to concentrate, and I'm finding it very difficult to commentate and pay attention to the game at the same time. This is one of those games where it takes a lot of focus to do halfway decent in it. Now, whenever I draft a car, you'll see it starts to write out the word Slipstream down in the bottom right. And once that gets completely written out, I get a little boost of speed. And order to pass by these guys. Let's go to Emerald Hills, maybe. Now you see I've got a timer up at the top right, so I need to get to the end of the track before the time is up. So that's right after this transition here. There you see, and get extended time. And of course that's all, again, taking from the Outrun game. Now I was, the last time I recorded this, I kept getting this confused with another game that I did a recording of many moons ago called Drift Stage. It's very, very similar. It's got the similar mechanics with the drifting, everything else. It's just the art style is different. The art style for this is a lot closer to the Outrun art style than Drift Stage was. Drift Stage was more of a, took the 80s aesthetic very much all the way through and through all the art style here. This also has an 80s theme to it, but it doesn't carry it all the way through to the tracks, which I think might be a little bit jarring. And I'll tell you why here. If I go to Metropolis, if I hit escape real fast, this is the escape menu where you can actually change your volumes and change what music you're playing, and all the music, of course, is in regular, diskettes, so it's kind of got that theme going, and it's got this VCR tracking going up and down the screen, which I think they overdid the tracking a little bit on this, because you can barely actually read any of the stuff on the screen. But and as the music changes, you can hear them swapping out the discs, or I'm not sorry, the discs, the tapes. I think I called them diskettes. I don't know why I called them that. Trying to swap out the tapes and whatnot in the tape deck. But you can see my results here. It is hard. It is very, I apologize. It is very difficult to commentate while actually playing the game here, because it does take a lot of focus, but it's very much got their retro thing going here, and they certainly have taken a lot of notes from Outrun. Basically, I don't want to harp on them for that. It's just that I actually fired up my 360, and I'm going to go. So this is the Grand Prix. Here you've got a part shop and stuff, so you actually upgrade your car all the way through. So I'm going to do the engine and the tires, and then as you win races, you get more money depending on what place you are in the race. So we'll start here. But I fired up just for the fun of it. I fired up my 360 and played a little bit of the Outrun arcade game that was on there, which you can't actually get anymore. It's because I think they lost their license to Ferrari, because they had actually licensed Ferrari cars. And the similarities are uncanny. Like it's not only is the art style similar, although they had less of a retro style and more of a like a 32-bit style than say a 8-bit or 16-bit style. But even the mechanics, like the drifting, was identical. You had to do the same way to do the drifting on that, although it felt better in that game with the controller than this game does. And the songs playing all the way through the game as well. And also even the terminology, like Slipstream was used in that game as well. Whenever you would drift behind a car, it would call it a Slipstream and you would get a boost. So this definitely wears its predecessors on its sleeve. It's a fun game, and I don't begrudge it one bit any of that. It certainly knows what it was going for, and it has succeeded, I'd say, at that. Notwithstanding, I kind of, having said all that, I kind of do wish that the tracks in the Grand Prix mode here had their own individual music, because I think it would give them a little more personality to the tracks. Like, I understand why they did it in arcade mode, because that's very nostalgic doing it there. But I feel like in the Grand Prix mode here, it would have been more interesting if each track that you go on, since you're going to do multiple laps on the track, had its own theme song, and that's the only song that played, rather than it just being the same collection of songs as you had, you know, for the last, for the arcade mode. But I mean, this is an indie game, so music costs money and all that stuff, so I can see from a budget perspective they might have been trying to keep it to a minimum. But I just think that does sort of take some of the personality out of some of these tracks. Like, the set dressings are basically just that, set dressings and not much else. There's no differing mechanics that I've seen. It's just the same road. The road in some of the tracks does get narrower as you go along, so there is some of that, but no environmental things necessarily. There are some physics problems that I've found, where occasionally when you go off the road, if you just briefly, your tires just briefly leave the road in some of the later stages, it will actually slow you down to 0 miles per hour. You could have been going 140 and suddenly you're going 0. And so, like, in literally less than a second. So I think there's still some physics problems in the game with that. I know it's an arcade game and there's not that much in the way of physics, but still, it's going from 150 down to 0 is very jarring and very unfair, I'd say, just because your tires happen to leave the road in just a particular place, and there's no like common theme to it either. It just seems to be random when it happens. Alright, we're going into the final lap here, not doing too bad, despite my not being able to commentate properly here. Alright. And these walls too, once you get stuck on them, it's hard to get back into a drift to recover from it. But I'm very much enjoying the game. All these gripes I've had are relatively minor, I would say. Despite all that, I'm enjoying the game tremendously. I'm just trying to get back into the hang of it here again. But yeah, I was very much confusing this with Drift Stage, which is not available yet. But they look very, very similar. Yeah, that's second place. Not bad. Not too shabby. So 8 points. So we have our season score, and then that's how much money we got. We got 4,500, 9,000 for the top. It's at the very beginning, the money is quite ludicrous. As you go along, the money starts getting very increases with each race, which is necessary because everything costs more. But it does allow you to kind of get up to speed very, very quickly. You can see here I've got my top speed going up already and all that stuff. There are different filters and stuff that you can do, like video effects, like you can have make it look like a CRT screen and all that stuff. They're all sort of gimmicks. I don't particularly like I'm not particularly down with gimmicks, honestly. I feel like it's not a adequate I guess replacement, if you will, an adequate replacement for having that aesthetic throughout the game, I guess. Because I feel like, and I still haven't figured out how to actually get off the line without spinning my wheels. That's, I don't know, they don't, there is a tutorial in the game, but it doesn't go over that. And it's very, very brief. It just goes over the very, very basics, and then that's it. Which is fine, it's in and out quickly, but I would like to know why I constantly spin my tires at the beginning there. I don't know if it's just to make the game harder, so that you, regardless of what position you start out in, you always end up in last. I don't know if that's just on purpose, or if that's a mechanic that I don't understand yet. It doesn't matter whether I am in the red zone when I'm revving the engine, or if I'm not revving the engine at all, it just still does it. But in any case, that turn is always going to be a problem here. In any case, it's a ton of fun, and it's pretty cheap for the fun that you can be had here. There's no, as far as I know, the only multiplayer in this game is the leaderboards, and that's just, you know, that's about all you get out of it. And I don't think that's a problem. I don't see this really benefiting from a multiplayer thing. Maybe like a local split screen possibly, but even that I would kind of find as not being very necessary. These cars though, they'll block you every chance they can get, I'll tell you that much. The music does get a little repetitive after a while. I don't think there's quite that many tracks. And even the tracks that are there tend to stick to the theme a little bit too closely to where you can't easily distinguish between them. Like this track sounds like the last track a little too closely. Like if I didn't hear the tape deck, the sound of tapes being changed in a tape deck, I wouldn't know that I was listening to a different track. Which is either good or bad. I don't know. You can kind of get tired of hearing the same thing over, you know, hearing the same theme, sort of. But it does fit what they're going for. So again, minor gripes here, very minor gripes. Everything else about the game I'm enjoying. I would like to have been able to play the game with a controller, but I just can't. Maybe they'll patch it at some point to make it a little more forgiving when you're trying to do a drift on the controller, because it does not feel good there. It feels okay on the keyboard, like I can consistently do it. But it also feels super imprecise, you know, when you're doing analog versus digital. There's always that extra feel that you get out of an analog stick that you can't get out of just digital keys. And I find myself kind of missing that. But at the same time, I'm doing okay here. I'm gonna let just the game play right now for a little bit with the music so you can get a good feel for it. And there we go, first place. Alright. We get 10 points. We're now still in second overall in the season, and we got 10,000. You can see 10,000 for that one. Whereas the last race, first place was 9,000. So that should give us quite a bit here as far as our acceleration, our top speed, and a little bit of handling. There we go. All right, we'll do one more race, and I will stay silent for this race. You can enjoy the soundscape and the visuals. we go, friends. First place. It's the power of focus right there. Now we're in the lead in the season there, and 12,000 more buckaroos to upgrade our ride with. And there you go. I somehow made them all even, didn't even plan on doing that, but there you go. So that, my friends, has been a Slipstream. It is by Ansdor. It is fully released out on Steam. Currently $8.99 at 10% off, normally $9.99 US. One thing I want to note for those, if you do pick it up, I noticed in the comments that people were having problems with this, but when the game first starts up, it doesn't start in full screen mode. It starts in like a postage stamp size thing. When you hit full screen, when you turn full screen on, you have to hit apply graphic settings right there in the middle, which is not very, you would think, you can't see it. It's so buried in the menu there. You would think just, hitting X to confirm or hitting cancel would automatically save it for you. No, it doesn't. You have to actually apply it in order for it to actually save. So that's, just keep that in mind. Just bear that in mind as you're, if you do pick the game up, that you're gonna have to do a little bit of that. So beyond that, I don't know. It's pretty competent. It certainly knows the genre that it wants to emulate, and it emulates it rather well, I'd say. My complaints about the controls notwithstanding. So there you have it, my friends. As always, I will leave links down in the description so you can do your own due diligence. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and I will see you next time.